I think there's absolutely no denying that volleyball is one of the hardest sports, especially when you're first starting to get into it. With all of the very specific rules and things like rotations, there's just a lot of things that make volleyball a very complicated sport. And because of the many variables that make volleyball a bit tricky to understand, what I wanted to do is clear the air by talking about some of the biggest misconceptions in the game of volleyball. If you are just starting out in your volleyball journey, I guarantee you that this video will help you become a better volleyball player, because being a better volleyball player means you have a better understanding of the game. I also think that this would be a great video to share to all the volleyball moms and dads out there that just don't understand how volleyball works. I know y'all out there love that your children are playing the game of volleyball, but if you have a hard time understanding the game, I guarantee you that this video will help you out. Make sure to leave a like on this video, comment down below the biggest question you still have about the game of volleyball, and maybe I will make a video looking into it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. We make content pretty much everything about volleyball, and if you want to check out some more PME volleyball content, make sure to follow the PME Volleyball Shorts channel. That's where you'll see all my short form volleyball content. So without further ado, let's hop into the top 10 biggest misconceptions about the game of volleyball. Before we hop into the world of misconceptions around the game of volleyball, I would like to take a chance to thank the sponsor of today's video, Victory Insoles. If you haven't heard of Victory Insoles, they make the world's best carbon fiber insole for volleyball players. These insoles are proven to help you jump higher, and they offer protection against injuries that you might get when you play the game of volleyball. With the season of giving currently among us, I would say that Victory Insoles make the perfect gift for us volleyball players. And for a limited time during the month of November, you can get Victory Insoles for $50 off. I highly recommend that if you want to pick up a volleyball product that'll help you improve your game, you pick up Victory Insoles. There is absolutely not a better time to do it. So whether you are looking for a gift for a fellow volleyball player or want to do a little treat yourself in this season of giving, Victory Insoles would be my go-to pick. And I guarantee you that the volleyball player you get these insoles for will absolutely love it. Thanks again to Victory for being the sponsor of today's video. And with that out of the way, let's hop right into it. One of the biggest misconceptions I hear about the game of volleyball is that it is just a girls' sport. Volleyball is most definitely not a girls' sport. In fact, it is one of the fastest growing sports for guys among high schools in the United States of America. Every year, we've seen more and more high schools and colleges implement boys' volleyball teams into their programs. And I don't know about you watching this video, but I have definitely had a conversation along the lines of this. Somebody I just meet says, "Hey, you're pretty tall. Do you play basketball?" And then I say, "No, I'm a volleyball player." And then they respond by going, "Volleyball, I thought that was a girl's sport." And I look at them like this. Because volleyball is simply not a gender-based sport. Although it might be bigger for girls, anybody can play it, and I highly recommend if you are looking for a fun, awesome, incredible sport to get into, volleyball might be it for you. Misconception number 2, volleyball is easy. If I had $1 for every time somebody has tried to tell me the game of volleyball is easy, I would probably have around like $37 by now. I'm sure we've all had that experience in our physical education gym class where the teacher sets up a volleyball net and the volleyball unit finally begins. And although the experience that you might have had in gym class volleyball might have seemed easy to you, that is simply because that actually isn't real volleyball. I believe that volleyball is one of the hardest sports in the world. Not only is it one of the fastest games in the world, but you have to add the factor that you have very minimal control over the volleyball as a player. This is because every one of the 3 contacts that you are allowed on the volleyball court happen in a split second. This means there is so much technical preparation that goes on behind the scenes, whether you're trying to pass, set, or hit a volleyball. So the next time that somebody tries to tell you the sport of volleyball is easy, tell them to go look up Yuji Nishida's serving highlights and then ask them if they think they're able to pass that serve. And please let me know what they say. Volleyball misconception number 3, you can only be good at the sport of volleyball if you are tall. I find this to be a misconception in the game of volleyball for a couple of different reasons. Although I can definitely see the argument for volleyball being considered a tall person's sport, some of the best volleyball players that I've ever played the game with have all been under the height of 6 feet. And while I do believe if you are a taller volleyball player, you might have a better chance at being better at the game, I truly believe that height is only a tiny variable in the entire equation of volleyball. The skills of passing and serving are 2 of the most important skills in the entire game of volleyball, and guess what? Height has nothing to do with them. And what I argue is a more important factor in the game of volleyball rather than how tall you are is how high you can jump. The ability to get off the ground when you are hitting and blocking is absolutely something that you do have in your control, and what you can't control is how tall you'll be one day. Some of the best volleyball players in the entire world can be considered to be quite short. Masashiro Sakita is one of the national team setters for the nation of Japan. He stands at only 5'9", but yet the nation of Japan has this man setting an offense in the front row at the highest level of volleyball in the world. How crazy is that? The craziest thing is he isn't even the shortest volleyball player that touches the floor for the nation of Japan. Tomohiro Yamamoto is only 5'7", and he's the national team's libero. And so the next time that you might have the thought that you can't be good at volleyball because you are not tall enough, just remember that building up your skills and working on that jump touch are two of the more important factors that makes a good volleyball player, not your height. Misconception number 4, the game is only about offense. I honestly do believe that hitting the volleyball is probably the most fun thing that you can do in the entire game. There's just a lot of satisfaction I get from hitting a volleyball hard. It just makes me feel good. And while hitting the volleyball might be the most fun aspect of the game of volleyball, I don't think it's anywhere near the most important to team success. Throughout my club volleyball career, I found myself playing against some of the West Coast volleyball teams. These teams that were from states like California just always seemed to get the better of me. And it honestly seemed that my team had no chance of even competing against them. And when I was younger, I used to think that those teams were just so much better than me because they were bigger, faster, and stronger athletes. But as I've gotten older and I've played more volleyball, I realized that the reason that those California teams were so much better than the one I played on was because they were just simply better at the two most important things in the game of volleyball. And I know I've already said this, but I can't put enough emphasis on the fact that the two most important things in the game of volleyball are serving and serve receive, not hitting the volleyball on offense. Having a good first touch that goes straight to the setter in serve receive means that they will usually have all of their options available on offense. This in hand makes it harder for the team playing defense to play defense, because now the blockers in the front row have to make the correct guess on who the setter is going to set, and in the back row, if there's not enough of a block setup, it is going to be super difficult to get a touch on defense. And that's why serving is so important, because you want to put enough pressure on the other team so that they won't have the opportunity to run an easy attack on offense. You are only able to run an effective offense in the game of volleyball if the first touch allows it. That's why you might have heard something along the lines of, it all starts with a pass. Misconception number 5, serving speed is more important than placement. Don't get me wrong, if you're able to serve the volleyball at 75 miles per hour every single time that you go back to the service line, go for it. You're probably going to get a lot of aces. But for the other 99.9% of volleyball players, this is going to be something that is impossible for us to achieve. I definitely believe that if you are either a jump server or a float server, it is definitely important to have a little bit of kick on your serve. But as you try to serve the volleyball harder and harder, the probability of you missing that serve gets higher and higher. So what I recommend all volleyball players constantly be working on is the placement of their serve. Whether you are trying to target a weak passer that you have identified in serve receive, or if you're trying to serve the volleyball in between two players and creating out-of-system situations for the other team on their first touch in serve receive, will make your chances of winning that point so much higher. So work on your placement. Make sure you're able to serve all areas of the volleyball court. Misconception number 6, there is only one way to play the game of volleyball. I started off my volleyball career playing indoor 6v6 volleyball. And for the longest time, I thought this was the only way that I could actually practice getting better at the game of volleyball. It was really the only version of volleyball that I became accustomed to. But little did I know is that there's like a half dozen different variations of the sport of volleyball. Whether you're playing indoor 6v6, beach doubles, grass triples, grass quads, or 9-man volleyball, there are so many different variations to the game of volleyball, and what I found is that some volleyball players are better at one variation of volleyball than another. For example, I do enjoy playing outdoor volleyball, but I do believe that I am the best at indoor 6v6 volleyball. But I have plenty of friends that have told me that they would prefer playing outdoor volleyball, maybe on the grass or on the beach, and that they think they are better at that type of volleyball compared to indoor volleyball. I highly recommend that you try playing different versions of the game. Not only will this just help you improve as an overall volleyball player, but you might even find that your skill set is better geared to work for one type of volleyball than another. And the only way that you could possibly find that out is trying to play different versions of volleyball. Misconception number 7, the only place that you can improve your volleyball game is on a volleyball court. I don't know about you, but for me personally, finding an indoor volleyball court is hard to come by. The only times that I was able to practice in this type of setting was when I was playing my indoor high school season or my indoor club season. And in the summertime, when both of those seasons weren't happening, I didn't really have any space to play the game of volleyball. But just because because you don't have a volleyball court to play volleyball on doesn't mean that you can't improve your skills. There are so many ways to improve your volleyball skills at home. Whether it's just simple hand setting in your bedroom, maybe serving against the wall you find outdoors. A really good one is peppering with a friend. These are all ways that you can improve your volleyball skills without an actual volleyball court. If you would like to see me making a video breaking down all the best at-home drills for volleyball players, let's get this video to 2,500 likes, and I'll get to making that video. Volleyball misconception number 8. You need to wear volleyball braces. I would highly recommend only wearing a volleyball knee brace or an ankle brace or something for your shoulder if you are coming off an injury and trying to prevent re-hurting yourself as you are getting back into the game of volleyball. But besides that, I think it is best to stay away from these types of volleyball accessories. There are a ton of very cool volleyball braces that you can rock on the court when you are playing. But the problem with wearing volleyball braces, especially when you are healthy and you don't need to, is that you can actually gain dependence on them, and it can get to a point where you're actually going to need to wear these volleyball braces when you didn't even need to in the first place. I've heard stories just like this about volleyball players who have worn knee braces when they are completely healthy, and after a while it got to a point where they played without it just once and they actually found themselves getting hurt because they had gained dependence on the volleyball brace. So use volleyball braces accordingly to protect yourself from injuries. Don't wear them just because they look cool. Misconception number 9. Volleyball is a low intensity sport. Volleyball is unlike a handful of other ball-oriented sports. When you look at a game like basketball or soccer, conditioning is super important because the players are almost constantly always in motion. And in a game like volleyball, it is true that you're not running around constantly. In fact, this is one of the reasons that substitutions in the game of volleyball rarely ever happen because a player is gassed. Instead, volleyball is definitely more of a vertical sport, where quick and explosive movements are where all the intensity takes place. If volleyball and soccer were seen to be like a marathon, volleyball is an all-out sprint. Having to explode off the ground with your jump dozens of times throughout the duration of a volleyball match, and the fact that you have to make these movements hundreds of times throughout the game of volleyball means that it is most definitely not a low-intensity sport. A low-intensity sport would be pickleball. Let's just be honest. Volleyball misconception number 10, middle is easy. And this misconception I actually do agree with. Middle, without a doubt, is super easy to play and honestly shouldn't even be considered a volleyball position because of how ridiculously easy it is compared to all of the other volleyball positions. I have heard so many people say the middle position is the easiest in the entire game of volleyball. And without a doubt in my mind, I 100% agree. I'm just kidding. I would argue that middle is one of the top 3 hardest positions in the game of volleyball. This is because they have one of the hardest assignments in the entire game, which is their blocking assignments. Blocking can be super tricky when you only have one person that you have to worry about blocking. For example, an outside hitter really only has to worry about putting a block up against the other team's right side hitter. And for an opposite hitter, they really only have to worry about blocking the other team's outside hitter. But middles can be responsible for sometimes having to block 5 people on one side of the net. This is just absurdly hard, so it makes me cringe every time I hear somebody say that the middle position is easy. The next time you hear somebody say the middle position is easy, you're probably watching a PME volleyball video. And that's because I like to joke around a little bit, but in all seriousness, middle is super difficult, and if you hear somebody say that in your middle, what I recommend you do is tell them to go play it so they can see firsthand how hard it actually is. And with all of that being said, go make sure to thank your middles for all the hard work that they do. So that is going to do it for today's video, breaking down the top 10 misconceptions in the game of volleyball. If there are any other ones that I missed, please be sure to leave them in the comments and I will make another video breaking those down and why they are wrong. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like on this video, that would mean a lot. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. We make content pretty much everything volleyball, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.